A quiet courtroom early in the morning. People are slowly filling the seats, some talking softly, some waiting silently. At the far end of the room, a young woman sits alone. Her name is Alacom, quiet and observant. She isn't talking to anyone. She just watches the front of the courtroom as if she's waiting for something important to happen in front of her. A man in his late 40s stands nervously. He looks tired, stressed, and worried. Today is his hearing, and everyone can see he isn't prepared. His clothes are simple, and in his hands, he holds a few papers that look old and folded from being handled too much. He has no lawyer. He is completely alone. The case seems simple to most people sitting there. The businessman who filed the case against him arrives with confidence. He wears an expensive suit, polished shoes, and carries a briefcase. His lawyer stands beside him, also dressed sharply. Anyone looking at this scene would think the businessman is the victim and the tired man at the front is the one at fault. The judge enters, and everyone rises. After a moment, they sit again when the judge tells them to. The judge is known for being strict but fast. He likes cases that are easy to close. He doesn't enjoy long explanations or emotional stories. Today, he already looks impatient, flipping through the case file quickly as he wants it done before it even starts. The judge begins by asking the businessman's lawyer to speak. The lawyer immediately steps forward and starts talking with confidence. He explains how the defendant, the tired man, didn't follow the terms of an agreement and caused losses. The lawyer speaks smoothly, using big legal words, showing a thick stack of documents as evidence. The businessman keeps nodding, acting like everything the lawyer says is completely true. The judge listens carefully to the lawyer, even asking a few questions. It's clear he respects this side more. Meanwhile, the defendant stands still, his hands shaking slightly as he waits for his turn. He tries to say something once, but the lawyer simply raises his hand, signaling him to wait. The judge also tells him, "You will speak when it's your turn. Please do not interrupt." The defendant nods and stays quiet. When the lawyer finishes his statement, the judge finally turns to the man who has no lawyer. The entire courtroom is expecting him to struggle. The judge sighs. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" The man clears his throat. His voice is shaky but sincere. He explains that the contract he signed was changed later without his knowledge. He says he tried to follow everything properly, but the businessman kept adding conditions and then accused him of breaking the agreement. He tries hard to speak clearly, but he isn't used to courts or legal terms. He uses simple words, trying to show the papers he brought. But the judge barely looks at them. The judge cuts him off. "Stay on point. Do you have proof?" The man tries again. "I don't have a lawyer, but I brought what I could. I just want to explain." The judge interrupts again, sounding irritated. "Please don't turn this into a long story. If you have evidence, show it. If not, keep your statements brief." People in the courtroom whisper among themselves. Some shake their heads, thinking the man is wasting the judge's time. The businessman smirks quietly, folding his arms. He looks completely confident that the case will go his way. In the back of the courtroom, Ayla watches everything carefully. She isn't moving, but her eyes follow every detail, every expression, every hesitation, every reaction. It's as if she already sees something others do not. The defendant tries to speak again. "Sir, if you allow me to explain, you will understand." But before he can finish, the judge raises a hand sharply. "I said keep it brief. You are repeating yourself. The man lowers his eyes, defeated. He holds his papers close to his chest, but it's clear he doesn't know what to do anymore. He looks around helplessly, as if hoping someone will help him, but nobody stands up. People usually avoid getting involved in someone else's legal trouble. However, one person does not stay silent. From the last row, Isla rises slowly. Her movement is small, but enough for a few people nearby to turn and look at her. She walks forward a little, standing straight and in a calm voice. She says, "Your Honor, may I say something related to the case?" The courtroom goes silent for a moment. No one expected her to speak. The judge looks at her with surprise, then annoyance. He doesn't like interruptions, especially from people who aren't part of the case. "Who are you?" the judge asks sharply. "Are you involved in this case?" Ayla shakes her head gently. "Not officially, but I have information." Before she can finish, the judge waves his hand. "Then sit down. This is a legal hearing, not a public discussion. You may not speak." A few people giggle softly, thinking she must be bold or foolish. The businessman's lawyer turns slightly, watching her with curiosity but also irritation. He doesn't want any unexpected voices. Ayla doesn't move. She keeps standing. Her voice remains steady as she says, "Your Honor, I understand the rules, but the information I have can change the direction of this entire case. It is important." The judge becomes visibly annoyed. "Miss, I am warning you for the last time. Sit down. If you speak again without permission, you will be removed from the courtroom." Everyone's eyes widen. Some people mutter, "She should sit down. Why is she risking it?" The defendant watches her with tired eyes, unsure why this stranger is speaking, but she still does not sit. Instead, she takes a small step forward. "Please, allow me just 1 minute," she says softly. "It may prevent a wrong decision today." That's when the judge gestures to the security guard standing near the door. The guard begins walking toward her. The judge's tone is firm. "Escort her out until the hearing is over." The guard approaches her slowly, probably expecting her to quietly leave. But Ayla doesn't panic. She calmly reaches inside her small bag and pulls out a tiny card, thin, official-looking something with a seal on it. She holds it up between her fingertips. Her voice remains calm and respectful. "Your Honor, before you send me out, please take a quick look at this. I believe it will explain why I am standing here." The guard pauses. The judge squints, trying to see what it is. People lean forward in curiosity. Ayla extends the card toward the guard, who looks confused but picks it up and brings it to the judge. The judge takes the card with an irritated expression, but as his eyes move across the text written on it, his eyebrows lift slightly. His face changes, first confusion, then surprise, then a serious kind of concern. He reads it again, slower this time. The whole courtroom waits silently. Even the businessman and his lawyer stare, wondering what could be on that card. A few seconds pass, but it feels long. The judge finally looks up at Ayla again, but his expression is completely different now. His voice loses its harshness. Instead, he speaks carefully, almost respectfully. "Please, come forward." Everyone is stunned. Whispering starts immediately. People look at Ayla with new curiosity. The defendant looks confused but hopeful, unsure why the judge suddenly changed his tone. Ayla walks forward slowly, her steps confident but humble. She stands near the front, beside the defendant, but she doesn't look nervous at all. The judge clears his throat and adjusts his glasses, still glancing at the card. He says softly, "Why didn't you mention this earlier?" She replies simply, "I wanted to observe first." Sometimes the truth shows itself in silence. The judge nods slowly, then turns to the people in the courtroom. His voice is steady but serious as he says, "This hearing may not be as simple as it first appeared." The businessman shifts uncomfortably. His confidence isn't the same anymore. His lawyer watches Ala with a cautious, calculating look. The defendant finally speaks in a low voice. Who are you?" Isla turns her head slightly toward him and gives him a gentle, reassuring look. Someone who believes justice shouldn't depend on who has more money or a louder voice. At that moment, everyone senses that something big is about to unfold, something that will change everything that looked one-sided at the start. The entire courtroom staring at Isla. No one expected the judge's attitude to change so quickly. A moment ago, he was ready to send her out, and now he is inviting her to come forward. Even the guard who approached her steps back, confused by the sudden shift. Isla walks slowly toward the front, calm and steady, not rushing and not nervous. There is something different about her now, that people know she isn't just another spectator. The judge keeps the card in his hand, glancing at it every few seconds as if reminding himself that the person standing in front of him is not ordinary. The defendant stands silently, unsure whether to feel relieved or worried. He looks at Ayla with cautious hope. A few minutes ago, he thought he had no chance. Now, something inside him whispers that maybe, just maybe, things might change. The judge clears his throat. "Miss Ayla, since you say you have information related to the case, I will give you the chance to speak. But you must explain clearly why you are here and why this matter concerns you." Everyone in the courtroom leans forward slightly. Even the businessman and his lawyer, who were relaxed earlier, look more alert now. Ayla speaks in a calm tone, as if she has done this before, but without showing any arrogance. "Your Honor, I came today because I have been reviewing multiple complaints linked to the same business practices used by the gentleman who filed this case." Her eyes turn briefly toward the businessman. He stiffens but tries not to show any reaction. The lawyer beside him adjusts his tie and folds his arms, pretending to be uninterested, but he is listening very carefully. The judge asks, "Are you involved in an official capacity?" Ayla nods. "Yes, I am. The identification card you saw belongs to my position. I have been assigned to review certain business disputes where smaller workers or people with limited resources claimed that they were pressured into agreements they didn't fully understand." A soft wave of murmurs spreads through the courtroom. People turn to each other, whispering, but quickly fall silent when the judge lifts his hand. The businessman's lawyer steps forward. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. This young woman may have some position, but she is not part of this case. She cannot simply walk in and interfere. We have procedures." The judge gives him a sharp look. "I am aware of the procedures, and I also know who she is. That is why I am allowing her to speak. If you have an objection, save it for later." The lawyer swallows his frustration and steps back. Ala continues, speaking in her steady voice. "I have been reviewing records and documents that are not part of this case yet. I came today only to observe, but what happened here helped me confirm something I was already studying." She turns to the judge. "Your Honor, the defendant tried to explain that he was given a different version of the contract than the one being presented today." She pauses for a moment, letting the words settle. I can confirm that this has happened in at least 3 previous cases involving the same businessman. A deep silence falls over the room. No one expected that. The businessman quickly stands and speaks loudly. This is nonsense. She has no right to. The judge raises his hand, and the businessman stops, though unwillingly. The judge looks at Ayla again. Do you have proof of these claims? Ayla reaches into her bag slowly and pulls out a thin folder. Nothing dramatic, just simple papers, neatly organized. She hands it gently to the guard, who gives it to the judge. The judge opens the folder and starts reading. Ayla says, "These documents show differences between the agreed contracts and the ones submitted later in legal complaints. The handwriting and signatures in some places do not match. The terms are changed. And in each case, the person accused did not have enough money to fight back, so they gave up." The businessman's lawyer quickly interrupts. "Your Honor, these could be unrelated. Anyone can collect papers and make assumptions." The judge lifts his eyes slowly. "You may speak when I ask for your explanation." The lawyer falls silent immediately. The judge takes his time reading the documents. Every page he turns increases the tension in the room. The businessman watches him nervously, shifting in his seat. He wipes his forehead, pretending it's just the heat. Though the air conditioning is running, the defendant watches Ayla with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. He still doesn't understand why she is helping him, but her presence is like a soft light in the middle of a dark tunnel. After several moments, the judge closes the folder and places it beside him. His tone becomes more serious. "I believe this information is relevant. I will allow Miss Ayla to continue." The businessman's lawyer immediately steps forward again. "But Your Honor, if we allow this, then the entire case structure will be disrupted. We must." The judge stops him again. "I have made my decision." The lawyer's face tightens with frustration, but he steps back. The businessman glares at Ayla silently, but she doesn't even look at him. The judge asks her, "What else do you have to present?" Ayla nods politely. "I want to explain something else I observed. When the defendant tried to speak earlier, he said he wanted to explain the situation, but he was interrupted multiple times. He may not have the same resources or representation as the businessman, but that doesn't mean his voice is less important. I think he deserves the chance to speak fully." The judge looks at the defendant, who appears nervous but hopeful. He gestures toward him. "You may speak again. This time, take your time." The businessman's lawyer sighs loudly, but the judge ignores him. The defendant steps forward. His voice is still shaky, but now he seems braver. "Sir, I didn't want any problems. I worked with full honesty, but the contract I signed was not the contract he submitted here. When I saw the papers today, I realized many things were changed after I signed. I tried asking him about it, but he didn't answer. He holds up his own papers. I know my documents are not perfect. They are old, but these are the ones I signed." The judge reaches out, and the defendant hands him the papers. The judge compares them with the documents submitted earlier. The room is completely silent as he reads. While the judge examines the papers, Ayla continues, watching quietly. She stands with her hands folded lightly in front of her, composed and respectful, not overstating her role. Finally, the judge looks up and says, "These documents are not identical." A shock moves through the courtroom. The businessman instantly says, "This is false. My documents are the real ones." The judge raises his voice slightly, not shouting, just firm enough. "You will speak only when called, The businessman falls silent, though he still glares angrily. The judge turns to Isla. Miss Isla, earlier you mentioned you had information beyond documents. Is that correct? Ayla nods. Yes, Your Honor, but I wasn't sure if this was the right moment to reveal it. The judge insists. You may reveal it now. Ayla inhales softly and speaks in a calm tone. Your Honor, last month, I received a complaint from another worker who said he was pressured into signing a contract late at night. He said some terms were changed afterward. When I tried to investigate, the businessman's office refused to cooperate. The businessman's lawyer interrupts again, his voice raised. Objection, this is all unrelated. But before he can continue, the judge finally snaps. Sit down. The lawyer stops immediately, realizing he is pushing too far. Ayla continues, still polite. I also have a recording of a phone call from a person who previously worked with the businessman. The recording suggests that changing contracts has happened before. The details match what the defendant is saying today. Everyone freezes. A recording. That is serious. The businessman bursts out. This is fabricated. I demand. The judge cuts him off sharply this time. You will remain silent until I give you permission. The businessman sinks back into his seat. Unable to control his frustration, the judge looks at Ayla. Do you have the recording with you? Ayla nods. Yes, Your Honor. But I want to clarify something first. The judge gestures for her to continue. She says softly, I did not come here to attack anyone. I came because I believe in giving people a fair chance. I saw the defendant struggling, and I realized the pattern was repeating again. I simply wanted to make sure the court sees everything, not just one side. Her words make the courtroom quiet again, but this time the silence is filled with respect. No one is mocking her now. No one is whispering negatively. People can feel that she is sincere. The defendant looks at her with grateful eyes. He whispers softly, Thank you. Ayla gives him a small nod, as if saying, You're welcome, without words. The judge takes a deep breath. It's clear that things are no longer simple. What looked like an easy, straightforward case now seems complicated and serious. He reaches for his notes. This hearing, he says, slowly, is taking a very different direction than expected. But justice requires that we examine every piece of information carefully. He looks at Ayla again. Please submit the recording and any additional material you have. This will help us evaluate the truth. Ayla nods and reaches into her bag again, taking out a small USB drive. She hands it to the guard, who gives it to the judge. The judge sets it aside for examination. He then says firmly, We will continue this hearing after reviewing all evidence. Until then, no final decision will be made. The businessman leans back, stressed. His confidence is shaken. His lawyer whispers something to him, but the businessman doesn't respond. Meanwhile, the defendant lets out a deep breath. For the first time today, he looks a little hopeful, not because. The courtroom doors closing again after a short break. People come back to their seats slowly, still talking in low voices about what happened earlier. Some look at Ayla with curiosity. Some look at the businessman with suspicion. And some simply wait, unsure what the next part of this hearing will bring. The defendant sits quietly at the front, holding his old documents in his hands. Even though he still looks nervous, there is a small hope in his eyes, now something that wasn't there before Ayla stood up earlier. Ayla returns to her seat in the front row, not acting like a hero or an important person. She sits simply, with calm eyes and a gentle expression. Even though she revealed her identity earlier, she doesn't behave like someone trying to impress anyone. She seems focused on the truth, nothing else. When the judge enters again, the room becomes silent instantly. He looks more serious now, more focused. It is clear he has listened to the recording and reviewed the documents during the break. He takes his seat and says, "I have reviewed the materials provided by Miss Ayla. This information is significant. Therefore, we will continue the hearing with special attention." The businessman shifts uncomfortably in his seat. His lawyer leans toward him and whispers something, trying to guide him on how to react. But the businessman looks stressed. His confident smile from the morning is completely gone. The judge turns to Ayla. "Miss Ayla, earlier you said you had been tracking several similar cases. Before we proceed, please share with the courtroom what you found." Ayla stands up with a gentle nod. She does not rush. She speaks softly, but her voice carries clearly through the quiet room. "Your Honor, in the past 6 months, I received multiple complaints from small workers, vendors, and individuals who signed agreements with the same businessman. They all claimed the same thing, that the contract shown later was different from what they actually signed." She pauses for a moment before continuing. "Some said they were pressured to sign quickly. Others said they signed one copy but were given a different copy later. Many were too scared to speak or didn't know how to fight legally. Most of them simply gave up." A ripple of sadness moves through the room. People shift in their chairs, and some shake their heads. Ayla continues, "When these complaints came to me, I started looking at the documents. At first, I thought they were small mistakes, but when I compared signatures, dates, and added terms, I realized this was not a mistake. It was a pattern." The businessman's lawyer jumps up quickly. "Your Honor, this is highly unfair. These so-called complaints have nothing to do with today's case. My client cannot be judged based on unrelated stories." The judge lifts his hand. "Sit down. I will decide what is relevant." The lawyer sits reluctantly, but stays tense. Ayla continues, her voice steady. "Your Honor, the recording I provided comes from a former employee of the businessman. In the recording, the person says he was asked to change documents. He mentions details that match the complaints." The businessman slams his fist lightly on his table in frustration. This is a setup. She doesn't even know me. The judge interrupts him firmly. "You will speak only when given permission." The businessman falls silent, but his anger is clear. Ayla turns slightly toward the judge again. "I am not here to attack anyone. My job is only to bring forward the truth, and this truth deserves attention." The judge nods slowly, taking notes. Then he turns toward the defendant. "You may speak if you want to." The defendant stands slowly. His voice is soft, but now steadier than before. "Sir, everything she said reminds me of what happened to me. I was given a contract to sign. I took it home, read it, signed it, and returned it the next day. But after some weeks, when the problem started, I saw a different version. It had extra terms, and those extra terms made it look like I had broken the agreement." He pauses, swallowing hard. "I tried asking for help, but no one believed me. They said I must have signed the wrong thing or lost the original copy. I didn't know what to do. I am not rich. I cannot afford a lawyer." His voice breaks slightly, but he controls himself. He adds softly, "I only came here hoping someone would listen." The judge listens with a thoughtful expression. For the first time, he seems to understand how helpless the man must have felt. Ayla steps forward slightly and says, Your Honor, the defendant's contract has similarities with the other cases I reviewed. The added terms appear in the same section. The handwriting in the added lines looks the same as the handwriting in the altered contracts from other complaints. A wave of murmurs rises in the courtroom. People now understand that this is not a small misunderstanding, it's something much bigger. The businessman finally stands again, unable to stay silent. I want to say something. The judge sighs, but allows it. Very well, speak. The businessman tries to calm himself and says loudly, this entire story is fake. That girl, whoever she is, making things up. My business has been running for years. If I changed contracts, why didn't anyone complain before? Why now? Ayla looks at him calmly and replies, they did complain. They just didn't have the power to fight you. The businessman laughs, but it sounds forced. You expect me to believe that all these people complained but never reached any legal stage? Ayla nods gently. Many people with limited resources don't have the confidence to fight. They are scared of going against someone with money and a lawyer. Some don't understand legal language. Some think they will lose anyway. You know this, and you used it. The businessman's face stiffens, but he quickly hides it. The judge steps in. Miss Ayla, do you have anything else to present before the court? Ayla takes a deep breath and says, yes, Your Honor. I have verified reports from a handwriting analyst who examined 2 sets of signatures. The analyst concluded that certain parts of the contract were signed by someone other than the defendant, even though the signature looks similar. This time, the courtroom reacts loudly. Even the guard looks surprised. The businessman's lawyer panics. This is not possible. We demand to see that report. The judge nods. You will be given a copy. Ayla hands another folder to the guard, who gives it to the judge. The judge opens it and reads silently for several minutes. The room remains quiet, filled with heavy tension. When the judge finishes, he places the report aside and looks directly at the businessman. His eyes are serious, almost stern. He says, these findings are extremely concerning. If true, they indicate serious wrongdoing. The businessman shakes his head quickly. This is all lies. The judge responds firmly, I will decide that after a full review. But for now, the evidence cannot be ignored. The courtroom feels different now. The businessman who once controlled the situation looks small and cornered. His lawyer flips through papers quickly, trying to find something to argue with. But nothing seems strong enough. Meanwhile, the defendant looks as if he is finally breathing properly after days of suffocation. His hands tremble not from fear, but from relief. Ayla doesn't smile, doesn't celebrate. She simply looks at the judge with calm, respectful eyes. She knows the truth still has to go through the full legal process. The judge leans back slightly, thinking deeply. His tone softens a little as he says, Miss Ayla, I appreciate your assistance. It is clear that your identity and your work carry weight. Your findings will be officially added to the case. People whisper, again this time with admiration for her bravery. Then the judge turns to the defendant. You have the right to speak once more before we move forward. The defendant looks at Ayla briefly, as if asking permission. She nods with a small smile, giving him silent courage. He clears his throat and says, Your Honor, all I ever wanted was fairness. I never wanted a case. I didn't want to fight anyone. I just wanted to do my work honestly. I hope you can see that I am not a dishonest person. The judge listens intently, his expression softer than before. After a long pause, the judge announces, "We will continue this case after further verification of all documents and the recordings submitted. Until then, no action will be taken against the defendant." The defendant closes his eyes briefly, relieved. The businessman looks shocked. His lawyer looks helpless. Ayla remains calm. She quietly steps back, giving space to the process. She does not try to take credit or stand in the spotlight. She simply does what is right. The courtroom felt different that morning. It wasn't loud or chaotic like the earlier hearings. Instead, there was a calm silence, the kind people feel before something important is about to happen. The young woman walked in quietly, her step steady, her expression focused. Even though she had faced disrespect in previous sessions, she carried herself with the same calm confidence she had shown from the first day. It was as if she already knew how everything would end. The judge glanced at her, clearly unsure of how to behave now that he knew who she truly was. He didn't interrupt her this time. He didn't raise his voice. He simply adjusted his glasses and pretended to read through some papers. Everyone in the courtroom noticed the sudden shift in his behavior. The young woman took her seat beside her father and gave him a small nod. He had been tense for weeks, worried that the case would ruin everything he had worked for. But now, when he looked at his daughter, something in him loosened. He whispered, "Are you sure you're ready?" She smiled and said softly, "Just trust me." The opposing side, who had been confident earlier, looked uneasy. Their lawyers sat stiffly, flipping through files as if searching for something that could help them. But everyone knew things had changed ever since the young woman revealed her real identity in the previous session. No one could ignore it now. When the judge announced that the hearing would continue, the young woman stood up. She didn't rush. She didn't look nervous. She simply walked toward the center of the room and asked permission to speak. The judge nodded quickly, too quickly, almost as if he didn't want to risk making a mistake again. She began by reminding the court that this case had started with confusion, assumptions, and false statements. She explained how her father had been accused of wrongdoing without proper evidence. She didn't raise her voice or sound angry. She spoke clearly and calmly, letting every word sink in. Then she presented the documents she had found. They were neatly arranged, well organized, and supported by official records. She had gone through every detail herself, checking dates, signatures, and statements. She had even included information that showed the mistakes made in the earlier investigation. She didn't insult anyone or blame anyone directly. She simply laid out the truth in a respectful but firm way as she spoke. The people in the room leaned forward, trying to catch every word. There was something powerful in the way she explained things, simple, honest, and without any unnecessary drama. Even those who had doubted her earlier felt a shift in their thinking. They could see she wasn't just trying to win a case. She was trying to correct something unfair. The opposing lawyer tried to interrupt once, but the judge immediately raised his hand and told him to wait. It surprised everyone, especially the lawyer. But the judge knew he had already made one mistake by not letting the young woman speak earlier. He wasn't going to repeat it. When she finished speaking, the judge asked her a question about one of the documents. She answered without hesitation, explaining the section step by step until even those with no legal background understood it. Her confidence didn't come from arrogance. It came from preparation and her strong belief in doing what was right. After reviewing the evidence, the judge called for a short break so he could read everything carefully. The courtroom relaxed for a moment as people stretched their legs and whispered among themselves. The young woman stayed seated beside her father. He placed his hand gently on hers. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. She smiled. "It's not over yet." When the judge returned, everyone sensed the final moment had arrived. He cleared his throat and began speaking slowly. His words were measured, but they carried weight. He acknowledged the case had been handled poorly at the beginning, and that he should have paid more attention to the young woman when she first tried to speak. He admitted that assumptions had influenced the direction of the case, and the truth had been overshadowed by confusion and pressure. It wasn't common for a judge to admit such things openly, and the courtroom felt the seriousness of it. Then he turned to the documents the young woman had presented. He stated that the evidence she provided not only cleared her father, but also revealed errors in the accusations made against him. The statements used earlier in the case were incomplete, and some had been taken out of context. The new papers corrected everything. The judge declared her father innocent. For a moment, there was complete silence. Not a sound. Even the usual noise of people shifting in their seats stopped. Her father closed his eyes slowly, as if letting the relief wash through him. When he opened them, he looked at his daughter, and his expression said more than any words could. Then the young woman did something unexpected. She asked the judge if she could address the court one last time. He hesitated, but nodded. She walked forward and spoke about the importance of letting people be heard, no matter who they are or what they look like. She reminded everyone that truth can come from anyone young or old. She didn't blame the judge or criticize the system. She just expressed, in a gentle and sincere tone, that fairness starts with listening. Her words touched many in the room. Even people who weren't involved in the case felt something shift inside them. It was the kind of moment that stays with people long after they leave. When the hearing ended, the father and daughter walked out into the sunlight. The air felt different, lighter, like a burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Some people approached them outside to congratulate them. A few even apologized for doubting her earlier. She accepted their words calmly, saying she held no anger toward anyone as they made their way to the parking area. Her father finally spoke. "Why didn't you tell me sooner about who you really were?" he asked gently. She laughed a little and said, "Because I wanted to see how far I could get just by being me. I didn't want anyone to listen because of my title. I wanted them to listen because I was right." Her father nodded proudly. "And you did just that." The days that followed were filled with conversations in the community. People talked about the girl who had walked into a courtroom, been dismissed at first, and then changed everything simply by standing firm in the truth. Some admired her calm strength. Others admired her patience. But most of all, people admired the way she carried herself with respect, dignity, and a quiet confidence that didn't need to shout to be heard. Her story became a reminder for many that labels and appearances don't determine a person's worth. Sometimes the most powerful voice in a room is the one that speaks softly but with undeniable truth. As for the young woman, she didn't brag about what happened. She didn't post it online or tell the story in a dramatic way. She simply moved forward with her life, helping her father rebuild his peace and continuing her own work with the same determination she had shown in the courtroom. Whenever people asked her how she stayed so calm through everything, she always gave the same answer. When you know the truth, you don't need fear. You just need patience. And that quiet belief, steady, simple, and honest, was what truly turned the case around.